Since I decided to change my health life, 18 years ago or more. No, it was actually, yeah, it was, my daughter's an adult. No, it was 21 years ago. 21 years. Yes, it was. It was when my wife and I decided to get married. 21 years ago. I decided to change my health life. I refused to continue to be fat and out of shape and flabby, and I did not like the way I looked. I didn't like the way I felt. Since then, what I have learned about our food system, it's almost by accident. It's by watching what's happened to my body as I have taken control over what I eat. I'm always on the lookout for little bits of metrics about all the trash we put in our bodies. See, I used to weigh almost 400 pounds. You're looking at me now, if you're watching video, if you're listening, you're hearing a guy's voice who's hugely different. You heard me when I talked when I was fat. I sounded so much different. I weighed 210 pounds this morning. That's about where I'm locked in right now, is 210 pounds. I used to weigh almost 400 pounds. And when I was that big, I didn't sleep well. I didn't do well. I didn't cognate well. None of it worked. So I've started to almost accidentally pick up health signals. There was a fantastic discussion about rising illnesses in people, and chiefly women. It has to do with all the plastic and the garbage we're putting into our bodies. Jillian Michaels is a woman who, by the way, is becoming a little bit red-pilled. She's threatening to leave the state of California. She calls herself Jewish and gay, meaning same-sex attracted. She's called out the madness of California, particularly on the topic of kids, which is healthcare related. There was a discussion they had with Dr. Casey Means about some of the links between all the garbage that we're eating and our bodies. This comes on the heels of the New York Times asking questions like, what if ultra-processed foods aren't that bad for us? Or you saw this from our own government. Hey, what if Frosted Flakes and Lucky Charms, Fruity Pebbles, are actually better for you than a steak? There are researchers who are paid to come up with conclusions like this. Later this week, no, it's next week, you'll see the full Greg Glassman interview, the CEO, the founder, and former CEO of CrossFit. He's taking on junk science. Can't wait for you to see that. We'll get to this discussion with Casey Means and Jillian Michaels in a second, and how it relates to what you can do to refuse to be the person that Washington, D.C. wants you to be. Refuse to be the person that science, so-called science, wants you to be. And look, we're not against science on this program. We simply want it to be what it is. It's a process. It's not a conclusion, and there's no such thing as scientific consensus. But there are observations. I make this observation. Prior to putting in the Eden Pure Oxyleaf 2 device into our home, when my wife, who's kind enough to do my prep cooking fish, which she can't stand, she doesn't like fish, she cooks it for me. It used to be that the entire home smelled like fish for the day. Not any longer. By putting the Eden Pure Oxyleaf 2 into the wall, it produces ozone, or those O3 molecules as she cooks or brings the fish in from outside from grilling. It bonds to the molecules of fish, it changes their molecular structure, and the smell is gone. It's replaced with the scent that you would experience the day after a thunderstorm. Another observation. In this studio, which is small, in which Nayana and I often spend 6 hours a day recording content, I often bring in my gym bag. Sometimes in the training for SEAL Fits scenarios, I came in having worked out for a couple of hours without the advantage of a shower. In the summer, yeah, I swam in the river, but I still stunk. It wasn't as bad at all because the room smells like the day after a thunderstorm. You can have this in your own home, your business, your Airbnb, your RV, your kid's dorm, your kid's military barracks. And I'll save you $200. Go to EdenPureDeals.com, enter code Todd3 to save $200, whole home coverage, whole RV coverage, more than good enough for an entire dorm room. EdenPureDeals.com, enter code Todd3, you'll save $200. Dr. Casey Means talking here about these links between what we eat and what's being done to our body. This coming on the Jillian Michaels podcast.
Colorectal cancer and breast, right? Those are the two in particular that are Well, let's talk about its colorectum, esophagus, extrahepatic bile duct, gallbladder, liver, stomach, pancreas. What do those all have in common? They are the gastrointestinal system. We are poisoning. We are putting straight up.
It's like cigarettes and lungs.
Yeah.
This is the parallel food and these cancers.
It's our GI tract. No.
God.
That our GI cancers are going up. We're eating nothing but toxic food. We're feeding goldfish to 2-year-olds in preschool, which is filled with artificial colorings and crap. Like, this is not a mystery. I cannot stand that all the cancer doctors are like throwing their hands up like this is a mystery. We're eating 50 metric tons of trash in our lifetime and we're getting GI cancer. Like, I'm sorry, but like this is, people need to hear this.
No, you're right.
You cannot. And of course, the way the research is done, no one's willing to say like, oh, it's the red 40. Oh, it's the emulsifiers. Oh, it's the preservatives. Oh, it's the 50 grams of ultra processed sugar in that smoothie. It's the cumulative burden of all of it, which is very hard to study. Oh, and the thing I was saying, this is going to get you worked up. You look at some of the studies and you hear some of the rhetoric with the cancer doctors at these elite institutions about what's driving cancer. And they all say, well, it's very complicated and mysterious, but it looks like obesity might be the cause of why a lot of this cancer is going up. Obesity seems to be a big thing. There's an issue with that statement that a lot of us will just gloss over. If we say that obesity is the cause of why the cancer is going up, which to some extent is true, it creates a pro-inflammatory state,
right,
increases estrogen levels, all this stuff.
IGF-1.
Then what's the solution? We have to fix the obesity.
You have to drug
which means we can give everyone with obesity Ozempic,
and
that'll
fix better.
The cancer
right.
issue.
One of these scientists, so-called, who contributed to the paper that suggested that Frosted Flakes and Fruity Pebbles are more healthy for you than a steak, is apparently one of the doctors involved in pushing Ozempic for kids in Washington, D.C. There's so much to peel away from this. Let's start here. God designed us to be able to visibly identify foods. When you walk through a garden, you can visibly identify a food. That fruit is a food. Your body can visibly tell. You can pick it up and smell it. It smells like this smells good. There's things that smell rotten and we shouldn't eat. Our bodies give us that. It could be the same apple, but it's weeks old off the ground. You smell it. Whoa, I'm not going to eat that. Why? Because your body says that could make you sick. Our bodies are designed to be able to identify things that God gave us dominion over. We have been given dominion over the plants and animals. The further things are away from God's design, the more they have human intervention in them, the more they have human designs in them. Designs used to be for convenience. Hey, how can we preserve food for a little bit longer so it doesn't rot on the shelf? Well, it started with refrigeration. God designed cool areas. A root cellar is a very godly thing. I don't think it's ungodly to have refrigerators. It's basically replicating a root cellar, but with electricity or natural gas. But when the preservatives become more than that, it becomes this human desire to how can we make sure that this food lasts long enough so that people think they've got this good value, and it goes worse. So much of what you're eating is designed to make you want to eat more. It's very, very smart of Jillian Michaels to compare this to cigarettes, a comparison I've been making since I decided to change my health. The presence of things like high fructose corn syrup in chicken breasts, and it's there, check your chicken breasts, is not for taste. It is to make sure that as you eat that chicken breast, you want more and more and more of it. This is capitalism unmoored from any form of morality. Yeah, I am a free market capitalist. I am not an amoral capitalist. When I decided to change my health for the better and I started to have very simple ideas of how to do this, don't eat a thing you can't identify. Like no one's going to walk along on a road and come upon like fruit leather and go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to eat that. I know that sounds weird, but really, if you're walking along a road, you look down, there's this thing smeared on the ground. You're not going to get down and go, wow, that looks good. I'm going to eat that. Dogs do that. My dog tried to eat the other day a like 2-week-old fur smearing of a squirrel in the ground. Like, you don't even eat that at home. Why would you do that off the road? The more we identify foods, like there's a banana, the healthier it is. The food companies know this. I cannot say this clearly enough to you. Capitalism unmoored from morality gets you things like distancing. Do you know what distancing is? Distancing is a technique that is used by big food. The less something looks like what it is, the easier it is to sell and the more margin you make. A steak is meat. That's a very, very obvious statement. It's very difficult to get extra margin out of that steak. So sometimes I'll add spices to it. Now it's a spicy steak. Now there's more margin. Sometimes I'll cook it in advance. Now it's a spicy steak that all you need to do is microwave. Hey, now you can earn more margin. Or now it's steakums. You seen steakums? It's fake, terrible for you beef jerky that is absolutely filled with emulsifiers and preservatives and salts and all chemically designed to spike your blood sugar. Now you got margin, baby. Capitalism works. Free market capitalism works. Amoral capitalism works. So how do we put morality back into capitalism? We can't. No, I mean, if you run a company, you can. If you're on the board of a company, you can. You can choose to buy from companies that are moral, and in that way you can, but we can't because it relates to the sin problem, the desire to control others, the desire to have more of their money, even if it comes to lying. Steakums aren't steak. It stopped being steak 16 processes ago. Stop being steak. But what we can do on our side is to return to the garden. The Seventh-day Adventists have some things right. For instance, returning to the garden, returning to our design. Now, I'm not going to give up eating meat. There's a belief that in the Garden of Eden, we didn't eat meat. Didn't matter. We didn't require it. But I am going to continue to purchase foods I can identify with a look. That's an apple. That's an orange. That's a slice of fish. That is a slice of steak. The closer you do with that, the closer you are to God's design. And remember this, he didn't just design the food. He designed the bodies that receive the food. Praise God.